So if you've ever taken a deep breath and just held it for a few seconds to calm down before a really stressful meeting, you might want to rethink that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've all done it, right? Or you follow along with one of those popular apps that tells you to hold your breath to center yourself.
Right, exactly. But what if doing that is actually causing like microscopic, irreversible damage to your own brain?
Yeah, that's the wild part. It really can. And it's a profound misunderstanding of how human physiology actually interacts with these ancient techniques.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. We are doing a deep dive to tear down these pastel-colored, highly commercialized wellness fads that are just dominating our feeds right now.
I mean, we really have to bypass that superficial advice of just telling people to, just breathe.
Yeah, we are heading straight into the hardcore, ancient, and honestly highly mechanical realities of true breath work. We're looking at practices that deal with the autonomic nervous system.
And not as some gentle background hum, but as a complex biological machine. A machine that, if you hack it incorrectly, will just silently degrade your cellular architecture.
It's intense. And to navigate this, we have a really fascinating, highly technical stack of source material today. It centers entirely around a practitioner known as Osman, the Blind Muslim Yogi.
Right. Osman is just an incredible figure. He's a master-level bioenergy healer, an entrepreneur, and someone who has been practicing these ancient sciences at like an extreme level for 5 decades.
And his specialization is actually in critical care, recovery, and even terminal illnesses.
Mm.
But his perspective is entirely unique because of his visual situation. He is permanently blind.
Yes, and that's a crucial detail. He lost his physical eyesight relatively recently, in May 2023.
Exactly. So because he had normal eyesight for most of his life, he still retains the vocabulary to describe these vibrant, energetic phenomena he experiences internally.
Right. He translates the invisible, energetic world using the visual language of someone who knows exactly what the physical world looks like. It's a really rare intersection of lived experience.
And it makes his methodology so compelling. I mean, we're looking at someone who integrates quantum and entanglement principles into his healing.
Yeah, he actually claims a 90% success rate in boosting immunity naturally, and he insists that isn't even extraordinary.
Wait, 90%, and he thinks that's just standard.
Yeah, he says it's just the normal result of replenishing natural energy that gets depleted by modern lifestyles. He even links things like cancer to this depletion of natural energies.
Wow. And the crazy thing is he isn't some practitioner who rejects the modern world. I mean, he achieved his first state of profound spiritual enlightenment, samadhi, at the age of 19.
Which is unheard of. But instead of retreating into a monastery, he walked right back into society. He built corporate wealth, he smoked for decades, and just lived a completely grounded, flawed human life.
I honestly found his defense of modern science throughout the source material to be the most surprising aspect. We'll definitely get to that later.
It's a great part of his story.
But just to set the roadmap for you listening right now, we are going to explore the actual physiological dangers of breath retention.
We'll also look at how to safely adapt ancient instruction manuals that originally demanded over 2 hours of breathing a day.
Right. Who has time for that? Plus, we'll get into the reality of the 72,000 energetic highways in your body and this staggering concept that breathing might be the mechanism to vacuum out 10 million years of evolutionary trauma.
It's a lot to cover. But to even begin that journey, I think we have to establish a baseline understanding of what we're actually discussing here.
Yeah, let's start with the definitions.
So the term pranayama has been completely co-opted in the West. People use it to mean basically breathing slowly to relax.
Like taking a deep breath at a yoga class.
Exactly. But according to the traditional yogic sciences that Osman studies and teaches, that definition is entirely incorrect.
So what does it actually mean?
When ancient texts refer to pranayama, they are almost exclusively referring to a specific protocol called annulom vilom, which is alternate nostril breathing.
Like alternate nostril breathing.
Right. But the critical variable, the piece that changes this from a relaxing exercise into a powerful and potentially dangerous intervention, is retention.
Retention. So meaning actually holding the breath. You breathe in through one nostril, you lock the air inside your body, and you wait.
That's the one. And this is the part of Osman's material I had to read like 3 times to really grasp.
Yeah, he explicitly warns that whenever you introduce breath retention, you introduce a severe risk of brain damage. You can literally unwittingly suffocate yourself.
And he makes it clear he doesn't mean suffocation in the dramatic sense, where you turn blue, gasp for air, and pass out on the living room floor.
Right, it's not like drowning.
No, it's much more insidious. He is talking about a slow, silent, consistent starvation of brain cells over months and years of incorrect practice.
Which is terrifying. We really need to look closely at the mechanics of microhypoxia
Yeah.
to understand why this even happens.
Well, your brain is a massive consumer of oxygen. It demands a constant, uninterrupted supply just to maintain cellular integrity and perform basic metabolic functions.
So when you voluntarily stop breathing, your blood oxygen levels slowly begin to drop,
Right.
and your carbon dioxide levels begin to rise.
Exactly. And usually the buildup of that carbon dioxide is what triggers the burning sensation in your lungs. It causes that panic reflex in your brain that basically forces you to take a breath.
Right, it's an evolutionary failsafe. It's your body screaming at you to survive.
But with repeated, forced breath retention without proper guidance, you can actually train your nervous system to suppress or just ignore that panic reflex.
Wow. So you essentially silence the body's alarm system before you've actually upgraded the body's physical capacity to survive without oxygen.
Yes, you turn off the fire alarm while the house is still burning.
I was actually thinking about this, like lifting weights. Like if you go into the gym and try to max out on a heavy deadlift, it looks super impressive to pull a massive amount of weight off the floor.
Right, everyone's watching you.
But if your internal structural form is off by even like half an inch and you don't have a spotter to correct you, you are quietly destroying your internal architecture.
That is such a good analogy.
You might not feel the slip disc or the micro tears in the tissue on that very first rep. You might actually feel really strong. But the mechanical damage is being done on a level you can't perceive until it's just too late.
The deadlift analogy captures the biomechanical risk perfectly. But I mean, we need to elevate that to the neurological level to grasp the true danger here.
How so?
Well, when you deadlift with bad form, you injure a disc. When you practice extreme breath retention with bad form, you induce cellular apoptosis in the brain.
Apoptosis, that's literal cell death, right?
Exactly. The cells simply die because they lack the ATP, the cellular energy derived from oxygen, to maintain their basic structure.
That is wild.
And the most terrifying aspect of this, which Osman points out, is how the practitioner actually feels while it's happening.
Oh, because they interpret the early signs of brain hypoxia, like the lightheadedness or the sense of detachment, as a spiritual progression.
Right. They feel this floating sensation and they think they are touching the divine, when in reality, they are literally just starving their cerebral cortex.
That is incredibly disturbing. Just the idea that spiritual euphoria could literally just be the sensation of your brain cells dying.
It really is.
And if the risk is that severe, I feel like it completely reframes how we look at wellness influencers pushing breath holds as a casual biological hack.
Oh, completely. You see people doing massive breath retentions in their cars or sitting at their desks trying to increase their focus.
Yeah, they treat it like a software update they can just install on their lunch break.
And this is exactly why Osman insists that advanced breathing techniques shouldn't be attempted without a master teacher.
Right, because the role of the teacher isn't just to tell you how to count.
No, the teacher is your external dashboard. Because you cannot objectively observe your own physiological state when you are actively altering your state of consciousness.
You need someone who knows the subtle visual and physical cues of distress.
Exactly. Osman suggests that you need direct communication, even if it is just reporting over the phone to a guide who understands the exact do's and don'ts.
They serve as the spotter who steps in the moment your biological form begins to break down.
Precisely. But even assuming you have that guidance, and assuming you're ready to approach this with the respect it demands, we run into this massive logistical wall.
Yeah, the time commitment. Because when you look at the actual ancient instruction manuals for these practices, they are fundamentally incompatible with modern life.
They really are. Osman points to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is essentially the gold standard text for yoga science. We're talking somewhere between 1,500 and 1,900 years old.
And the sutras don't suggest doing this for 5 minutes before bed to wind down.
Definitely not. They recommend 21 rounds of this intensive pranayama done 4 times a day.
And Osman actually calculated what that means for an advanced practitioner.
He did. Executing 21 rounds of deep, retained, alternate nostril breathing 4 times a day equates to over 2 hours and 15 minutes of active, rigorous physiological manipulation every single day.
Wait, 2.5 hours a day?
Yeah.
I mean, if I try to tell you, listening right now, while you're juggling a mortgage, a full-time career, and maybe a toddler, to stop what you're doing 4 times a day to engage in intense breath retention, you're going to laugh and turn this show off.
It's completely unachievable, unless you are living an agrarian lifestyle in a monastery or you are completely devoid of any modern social and economic obligations.
Right, there has to be a compromise protocol that doesn't demand half of your waking hours.
And Osman recognizes this friction immediately. He is a total pragmatist. He understands that a spiritual tool is utterly useless if your environment physically prevents you from picking it up.
So what does he do?
He turns away from the sheer volume demanded by Patanjali and looks to another ancient source, a South Indian text called the Mandaram.
Okay, the Mandaram.
It's a 2,000-year-old scripture containing the teachings of a Tamil saint. And what the Mandaram offers isn't a demand for volume, but a demand for profound precision.
It introduces a highly specific mathematical ratio for the breath, doesn't it?
Yes. The ratio is 1 to 4 to 2.
1 to 4 to 2, meaning the ratio of the inhale to the retention to the exhale.
Exactly. You hold the breath 4 times longer than it took you to inhale it, and you take exactly twice as long to exhale it as you did to breathe it in.
And the Mandaram is very specific about the absolute maximum count you should aim for, right? It prescribes an inhale of 16, a retention of 64, and an exhale of 32.
Yeah, but we really must define what a count is in this context, because the modern mind immediately defaults to seconds.
Which was my immediate thought. Holding your breath for 64 seconds is incredibly difficult, but an exhale of 32 seconds.
This sounds impossible.
Trying to stretch a single outward breath for over half a minute feels like it would just collapse your lungs.
It would certainly trigger a massive panic response in an untrained nervous system. But Osman clarifies that in these ancient yogic sciences, a count is not equivalent to a standard second.
Oh, so it's faster.
Right. It operates more like a brisk musical tempo. According to his calculations, 100 counts in the system is roughly equal to 60 seconds on a clock.
Okay, so it's slightly faster than a second. It's a rhythm, like a heartbeat when you're walking. Like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Precisely. So if we apply that tempo to the Mandaram's maximum, an inhale of 16 counts translates to roughly 9 or 10 seconds of continuous inward breath.
Got it. And the retention is 64 counts.
That is about 38 to 40 seconds of holding, and the exhale of 32 counts is roughly 19 or 20 seconds of controlled, slow release.
Even adjusted for the tempo, jumping straight into a 16-count inhale, a 64-count hold, and a 32-count exhale is impossible for anyone walking in off the street.
Oh, absolutely. You will choke, you will panic, and you will spike your cortisol levels, which is, the exact opposite of what this practice is trying to achieve.
Osman definitely knows this. So he took this 1.4.2 ratio and engineered a very safe, progressive, 4-tier system designed specifically for the 21st century nervous system.
And the brilliance of his adaptation lies in simple division. Because the numbers 16, 64, and 32 are all perfectly divisible by 4, he scales the entire protocol down to a highly approachable baseline.
Yeah, level 1 of his system starts incredibly small.
Yeah.
The ratio is still strictly 1.4.2, but the counts are 4 inches, 16 hold, and 8 out.
Which in real time is what, an inhale of maybe 2.5 seconds?
Yeah, a hold of about 9 or 10 seconds and an exhale of 5 seconds. Almost anyone can sit down and accomplish that without sending their brain into a state of hypoxia.
Exactly. It is the absolute minimum viable dose required to begin training the autonomic nervous system without triggering that survival reflex.
You establish the neural pathway of the 1.4.2 rhythm without putting any actual stress on the cellular architecture.
But the mandate here is crucial. You do not progress to the next level until the current level feels as natural and effortless as your normal resting breath.
Right, you have to earn the progression.
Yeah.
So once level 1 is completely effortless, you move to level 2, which is 8 inches, 32 holds, 16 out.
And then level 3 triples the baseline. 12 inches, 48 hold, 24 out.
And finally, when you have mastered that, you arrive at level 4, which is the ancient standard from the Mandaram. 16 inches, 64 hold, 32 out.
And arriving at level 4 introduces a really profound psychological test for the modern practitioner.
How do you mean?
Well, because we are culturally conditioned to view any system of levels as an infinite game, we exist in an environment of gamification where the moment we achieve level 4, our immediate neurological impulse is to ask, well, how do I unlock level 5?
Oh, exactly. If the math scales infinitely and 16, 64, 32 becomes comfortable, human nature dictates that we try 20, 80, 40.
Right. Or we push the retention to 100 or 150. Why stop at the ancient prescription if you feel like you have the biological capacity to go further?
And Osman actually tested this boundary himself, didn't he? Because he was practicing up to 18 hours a day in his early years, he fell into what we might call the ego trap of advanced spirituality.
He really did. He pushed his retention count to 300.
300.
A count of 300 equates to roughly 3 full minutes of uninterrupted breath retention performed repeatedly within the cycle of pranayama.
That's insane.
At that duration, you are undeniably pushing the physiological limits of the human brain's oxygen reserves.
But Osman notes that because his practice was so advanced, it actually felt entirely easy. He didn't feel the burning in his lungs. He didn't feel the panic.
Which is the terrifying part we talked about earlier.
Exactly. But this is where his deep understanding of biology intervened, overriding the spiritual euphoria. He had to stop and ask himself a really chilling question. Am I silently destroying my brain cells?
It's a moment of profound self-awareness. He recognized the exact danger his heightened state of consciousness was masking. That deep meditative trance induced by the practice was acting as an anesthetic.
Right, it was hiding the physical suffocation of his body.
The dashboard warning lights were flashing, indicating severe oxygen depletion, but his consciousness was so elevated that he was completely detached from the dashboard.
It perfectly illustrates why turning off the autopilot is so dangerous. Your body's distress signals are completely bypassed.
So Osman makes a decision that I think defines true mastery.
He deliberately scales his practice back down. He abandons the 3-minute holds and returns to level 4, the 16-64-32 ratio.
He chooses the strict boundary of physiological safety over the allure of spiritual extremity.
He realized that true mastery isn't about pushing your biology to the breaking point just to prove you can dominate it. True mastery is having the discipline to stop when the purpose has been served.
That decision really shifts the entire paradigm of the practice. I mean, if the goal is not to win a breath-holding contest, and the goal is not to endure the longest period of hypoxia possible, then what exactly is the purpose of this specific mathematical ratio?
Right. Why are we alternating nostrils? And what is this mechanical pressure trying to accomplish inside the body?
To understand the why, we have to move past the physical respiratory system and look at the subtle anatomy of the body according to yogic science.
The premise is that the physical body, like the flesh, the blood vessels, the nervous system, is overlaid and interwoven with an ethereal, energetic body.
Exactly. And this energetic body is constructed of tens of thousands of microscopic energy channels or tubes, which are called nadis.
The specific number cited in the source material is 72,000, right? There are 72,000 nadis intricately mapped throughout the human form.
And they are distributed with perfect bilateral symmetry. There are 36,000 nadis running through the left side of the body and 36,000 running through the right side.
Kind of visualize this not just as abstract lines, but as this dense, glowing fractal network that maps almost identically over our physical nervous system.
That's a great way to picture it.
You have 36,000 minor roads and pathways on the left and 36,000 on the right. And controlling the flow of traffic for all of these minor roads are two massive, dominant superhighways that run right along either side of your spinal column.
Those two master channels are known as the Ida and the Pingala, and they act as the primary conduits for two fundamentally different types of energetic traffic.
The source notes that one side, the Ida, which is often associated with the left, carries intuitive, emotional, receptive energy.
And the other side, the Pingala on the right, carries vibrant, active, energetic energy.
If we strip away the ancient terminology and look at this through a modern neurobiological lens, this maps remarkably well onto the autonomic nervous system.
It really does. The left side correlates strongly with the parasympathetic nervous system. That's the rest and digest function that calms you down.
And the right side correlates with the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight function that gears you up for action.
That neurological translation is just vital. We are talking about the duality of human existence encoded into our physical and energetic anatomy.
The calm and the storm, the logic and the emotion.
Exactly. And these two massive channels, the Ida and the Pingala, do not just run in straight parallel lines, they intertwine.
Right, they weave back and forth across the spinal column, moving upward until they converge at a very specific, highly concentrated intersection. The third eye region, located right in the center of the forehead.
And running directly down the very center of all of this, straight through the core of the spine, is a third channel. The central column, known as the Sushumna Nadi.
Sushumna.
Yes. The Sushumna is the ultimate pathway of spiritual and energetic evolution. In this science, the overarching goal of all these practices is to awaken the dormant life force energy resting at the base of the spine.
The Kundalini.
Right, the Kundalini, and guide it straight up that central column.
But there is a massive physiological and energetic catch here. And this explains the entire mechanics of the alternate nostril breathing.
Yeah, That central highway, the Sushumna, remains completely locked and closed off as long as there's an imbalance between the left and right highways.
So if your left side is bogged down with emotional traffic,
Yeah.
or your right side is overactive and stressed, the central gate simply will not open. Energy cannot flow upward.
This is where Osman's unique visual condition provides us with a phenomenal data point. Because he lost his physical eyesight in May of 2023, he relies heavily on his highly developed inner vision.
Right, and he explains that due to his decades of practice and the opening of his third eye, he can visually perceive the colors of these energetic highways continuously, 24 hours a day.
It is a stunning overlap of neurobiology and mysticism. Without physical sight, his brain continues to process profound visual information, but it is rendering his internal energetic state.
He describes the Ida and Pingala energies as manifesting in specific colors, either a pinkish red or a bluish gray.
And when those two sides balance perfectly and the central column, the Sushumna, finally opens, it appears to him as a deep blackish red.
He is literally observing his own internal autonomic state. He can look inward and instantly know whether his sympathetic or parasympathetic system is dominant based on whether the dominant hue is pinkish red or bluish gray.
And this brings us to the concept of universal sync. Because these two systems are not supposed to be statically balanced at all times, they are actually designed to alternate.
Right. Every person naturally has one dominant nostril at any given moment, and it switches back and forth throughout the day.
Osman suggests that this shifting rhythm is our body's attempt to align with universal environmental energy.
There are times of day that require the vibrant, active energy, and times that require the receptive, calming energy. Our physiology is constantly trying to sync with that external rhythm.
But the reality of modern existence is that most of us are completely out of sync. We exist in a chronic state of stress, operating in what Osman refers to as the beta state of brainwave frequency.
We are bombarded by stimuli, our nervous systems are locked in a low-grade fight-or-flight response, and our nadis are riddled with blockages. We aren't in sync with the environment, and we aren't even in sync with our own basic respiratory rhythms.
In fact, let's ground this right now. If you are listening to this, I invite you to try a very simple physical experiment that Osman actually recommends.
Okay, what is it?
Just take your finger and gently close off one of your nostrils. Take a breath in and exhale. Now switch and do the exact same thing on the other side.
And unless you are an incredibly rare exception, you will immediately notice that one side is flowing clearly and freely, while the other side feels restricted or congested.
Right, one side is absolutely dominant.
It is a stark, immediate realization of how detached we are from the machinery keeping us alive. I mean, we take roughly 20,000 breaths a day, and we don't even register that our intake is lopsided.
And this physiological asymmetry is exactly why pranayama, specifically anulum vilum, is necessary.
By physically placing your hand on your face, clamping down one nostril, forcing the air through the restricted side, locking it inside the body with a retention, and then forcing it out the opposite side, you are mechanically overriding the imbalance.
You are using physical pneumatic pressure to force the left and right energy highways into a state of equilibrium.
And when you achieve that perfect equilibrium, Osman describes the physical sensation of the enlightenment state, or samadhi. He has experienced this profound state multiple times throughout his life.
And he notes that every single time, right before the energetic shift occurs, he experiences a complete clearing of his nasal passages.
A flow of liquid occurs. The left and right nostrils balance absolutely. His internal vision shifts to that central blackish red, and the energy surges up to Sushumna.
It really grounds the highly esoteric concept of enlightenment into a deeply physical, biological event. It isn't just a sudden philosophical realization. It is a mechanical unlocking of the nervous system.
But this begs a massive question. If these nadis are the highways, and the goal is to get the traffic flowing perfectly so the central column can open, what exactly is causing the traffic jams in the first place?
Right. Why are our 72,000 energy channels so chronically blocked?
This is where the scope of the deep dive expands exponentially. Because the blockages in your subtle anatomy are not just the result of a stressful week at work, a bad breakup, or even the unresolved emotional trauma of your individual childhood.
No, the scale of the baggage we are carrying is almost incomprehensible. Osman introduces the concept of samskaras. Samskaras are the deep, psychic grooves of memory, trauma, PTSD, and emotional impressions that become lodged within the nadis.
And he learned from his own master teacher, a practitioner he reveres as operating at, like a PhD level of pranayama, that the human body is currently housing 10 million years of memory.
Which immediately triggers a logical alarm. As a species, Homo sapiens have only existed for roughly 300,000 years. So how can a single human nervous system be burdened with 10 million years of trauma?
I had to seriously push back on this claim when I read the source material. It feels like an astronomical leap. Like, I understand the concept of a 35-year-old having childhood trauma to process. I can even grasp the idea of inherited trauma.
Yeah, family cycles.
But jumping from human history to 10 million years of earthly evolutionary biology feels unscientific. How does Osman bridge the gap between a modern human and 10 million years of evolutionary terror?
Well, he anchors this staggering timeline in the dual mechanisms of epigenetics and evolutionary neurobiology. The concept of genetic memory is no longer just a mystical theory. It is an observed scientific reality.
He points to epigenetics, right?
Yes, Osman points to the widely documented reality of epigenetic inheritance, noting that scientific studies on animals have demonstrated that a specific trauma or fear response can be biologically transmitted down the genetic line for up to 7 generations.
But 7 generations only accounts for a few hundred years. That still leaves a gap of 9,999,000 years.
To cross that gap, you have to look at the physical architecture of the brain itself, specifically the limbic system.
Okay, the limbic system.
The limbic system, particularly the amygdala and the hippocampus, is the primitive emotional center of the brain. It is responsible for the fight-or-flight response. And that specific neuroarchitecture was not invented when humans arrived on the scene.
Right, it was forged in the prehistoric crucible of survival over millions of years of mammalian evolution.
So you aren't just carrying the memories of your great-grandfather. You are carrying the accumulated, hardwired survival terror of millions of years of evolution.
The paralyzing fear of the predator in the grass, the panic of starvation, the brutal evolutionary imperative to survive a hostile planet at all costs.
All of those ancient, primitive survival responses, those prehistoric samskaras, are physically encoded in the development of your brainstem and limbic system, and energetically, they are clogging up your 72,000 nadies.
It completely reframes our understanding of modern anxiety. When you experience road rage on your morning commute, or when your heart rate spikes because your boss sends you an unexpected email, your nervous system isn't just reacting to a modern inconvenience.
No, it is firing a 10-million-year-old survival protocol designed to keep you from being eaten. Your nadies are jammed with the energetic residue of a million generations of fear.
Which brings us back to the mechanics of the breath. If we are genuinely dealing with 10 million years of evolutionary baggage embedded in our neurobiology, how on earth does breathing in a 1.4.2 ratio fix it?
Right, how does holding your breath actually clear out ancestral trauma? To understand the mechanism of action, Osman draws a vital distinction between the practice of general meditation and the highly specific practice of pranayama.
He describes meditation as a process of passive connection. When you meditate, you open yourself to cosmic energy.
That energy slowly enters the physical form, often visualized as entering through the crown of the head, and it slowly fills the body from the toes upward, much like water gently filling a glass.
It is a slow, gentle filtration process. As the body passively fills with this higher frequency energy, the dense, heavy blockages and samskaras naturally begin to soften and settle out.
Yeah, I think of it like defragmenting a hard drive in the background while you sleep. It works, but it takes an immense amount of time.
Exactly. But pranayama, specifically alternate nostril breathing with the retention phases, is an entirely different mechanical process. Osman compares pranayama to an aggressive vacuum cleaner.
If meditation is opening a window to let fresh air slowly push the stale air out of a room, pranayama is wheeling in a massive industrial vacuum, sealing the doors, and aggressively siphoning the dirt out of the carpet.
The mechanics of the breath create this vacuum. By restricting the breath, holding it for 64 counts, and forcing the air pressure through alternating channels, you are physically elevating carbon dioxide levels and creating a mild survival stress response.
And energetically, you are preventing your prana, your life force, from flowing outward through normal respiration. You lock it inside the body.
That trapped, highly pressurized energy seeks an escape route, and in doing so, it acts as a pneumatic drill, blasting through the energetic plaque of those 10-million-year-old samskaras.
You are mechanically forcing the ancient trauma out of the nervous system. Osman states that pranayama literally fast-forwards your personal and spiritual development.
It accelerates the clearing of the nadies at a rate that passive meditation simply cannot match. He believes that if someone adheres to this strict, mathematically precise protocol, they will resolve 90% to 100% of their psychological burdens.
Assuming those burdens aren't rooted in a structural, physiological abnormality in the brain itself, of course.
It elevates the breath from a simple tool for relaxation to the primary surgical instrument for human evolution. The breath becomes the tangible physical bridge between millions of years of ancestral survival memory and your present-day waking consciousness.
Now, if you are listening to this and keeping track of the concepts we've covered, ancient energy channels, third eyes, cosmic vacuums, and 10 million years of evolutionary trauma, you would be completely justified in assuming that Osman is a total mystic.
Oh, absolutely. You would expect him to be living in a cave somewhere, rejecting all of society and preaching that the modern world with all its technology and medicine is toxic and evil.
Which is the pervasive trope in the modern alternative wellness community. There is a massive trend of rejecting modernity in favor of a highly romanticized, scientifically inaccurate vision of the ancient past.
But Osman's actual life and his core philosophy radically subvert that expectation. This was undeniably my favorite part of the source material.
Mine too. Because Osman delivers one of the most fierce, pragmatic, and historically literate defenses of modern medical science that I have ever heard from an alternative bioenergy healer.
It is a deeply necessary dose of reality. He directly confronts the growing anti-science, anti-pharmaceutical rhetoric that plagues the wellness space, the people insisting we need to abandon all medical interventions and rely solely on 100% natural remedies.
Osman looks at that argument and says, okay, let's examine the historical data. Let's look at the year 1900, or let's go all the way back to prehistoric times.
Right. By the standards of today's natural wellness gurus, our ancestors lived the ultimate perfect lifestyle. They had a diet that was 100% organic, entirely non-GMO, and freshly foraged.
They lived in an environment with zero exhaust fumes, zero microplastics, and zero industrial chemical runoff. They drank water that was pristine and unpolluted.
They possessed the flawless natural environment that the modern wellness industry is constantly trying to replicate.
And yet, Osman points out a brutal historical fact. In those pristine conditions, more than 50% of the human population died before they reached the age of 30.
Half the population dead before 30. All the organic, locally sourced food in the world did absolutely nothing to save them from massive infant mortality rates, simple bacterial infections, and basic diseases that are entirely preventable today.
Osman attributes the massive leap in modern life expectancy, which now sits between 78 and 81 years in many developed nations, directly to the advancement of modern medical science, surgical intervention, and the pharmaceutical industry.
He emphasizes that the global population did not explode from 2 billion people in the early 1900s to 8.4 billion people today because human beings suddenly changed their reproductive habits.
No, the population exploded because modern science drastically, miraculously decreased the mortality rate.
He practically issues a warning to his audience, urging them to think very carefully before they criticize or dismiss the scientific and medical advancements that have literally doubled the human lifespan.
He operates as a bioenergy healer who specializes in critical care and terminal illnesses, doing this quantum, telepathic level healing, yet his message is unequivocally integrated.
Yes, utilize natural therapies. Yes, use energy healing to boost your natural immunity, which he claims he does with a 90% success rate.
And yes, practice pranayama to clear your nadis, but under no circumstances should you treat these practices as a replacement for medical treatment. He insists that his work is complementary to, not a substitute for, licensed medical care.
It reveals a highly mature, remarkably robust worldview. Spirituality and ancient energy practices are not meant to be an escape hatch from reality or a rejection of human intellectual progress.
They are optimization tools meant to be used within the context of modern scientific reality.
And if you look at Osman's own life trajectory, he is the ultimate living testament to this integration. He isn't just theorizing about living in the modern world, he threw himself into it.
As we noted earlier, he achieved samadhi, the ultimate state of total enlightenment and perfect energetic balance, at the remarkably young age of 19.
A teenager achieving that level of realization is extraordinarily rare. Most individuals who touch that state at such a young age would immediately renounce the world, join a monastic order, and spend the rest of their lives in isolated contemplation.
And Osman acknowledges that he was fully qualified and psychologically prepared to do exactly that. The path of renunciation was wide open to him.
But he consciously chose to walk away from it. He stepped down from the peak of spiritual attainment because he looked out at the material world and realized he actually wanted to experience it.
He wanted to understand the friction of a normal human existence. He wanted to know what it felt like to build a career, to generate corporate wealth, to own property, and to be entirely self-sufficient.
He wanted to get married, have a family, and engage with society on its own terms.
He deliberately chose the complexity and stress of the modern world over the pristine peace of the monastery. He wanted to test the resilience of his spiritual foundation against the chaos of the boardroom and the reality of daily societal obligations.
And he fully immersed himself in that human experience. He is incredibly candid about his past. He admits that he lived a party animal lifestyle for a period of time. He consumed alcohol,
He even smoked cigarettes for 23 years.
which is an astonishing admission from a master-level yogi and energy healer.
He doesn't glorify it, though. He explicitly calls smoking a terrible, destructive habit that is incredibly difficult to break, noting that he finally quit 18 years ago.
But his transparency serves a crucial purpose. It proves that he lived a deeply human, deeply flawed life. He didn't float above the world on a cloud of spiritual superiority. He wrestled with the same addictions and physical habits as anyone else.
He built massive corporate wealth, navigating the high-stress environment of business, but the key to his journey is how he integrated his profound spiritual foundation into that material success.
He didn't just hoard the wealth, he utilized it through the strict practice of karma yoga.
Karma yoga is one of the foundational pillars of yogic science. It is the yoga of action and selfless service. It is the practice of executing your duties and doing profound good in the world without any attachment to the rewards or the results of those actions.
And Osman practiced karma yoga in the most extreme, literal, and tangible way imaginable. Because he had generated such significant financial assets, he practiced radical generosity.
He tells stories about his affinity for luxury watches, Rolexes, Omegas, highly valuable timepieces.
If he was wearing a $25,000 watch and a friend, an acquaintance, or even an unhoused person he met on the street admired it, he wouldn't just say thank you.
No, he would take the watch off his wrist and give it to them. He gave away luxury assets to people who could never afford them, simply to witness the sheer joy it created in their lives.
The financial scale of his generosity is staggering. He mentions giving away massive sums of money, 6 and even 7-figure amounts in US dollars, to individuals who are in desperate need.
And he operated under a very strict personal ethical rule regarding this money. He never lent it.
Never alone, always a pure gift. He would hand over these massive sums and explicitly tell the recipient, "Do not pay me back."
Use this to build yourself up, establish your stability, and when you are finally secure, pay the energy forward by helping someone else.
It is a brilliant psychological and energetic framework. He asserts that if you are constantly engaged in serving others, alleviating their suffering, and actively creating moments of joy in the world, it becomes biologically and psychologically impossible to remain unhappy yourself.
He challenges anyone to maintain a state of depression while actively and selflessly lifting up the people around them.
Which brings his entire teaching full circle, highlighting his ultimate message: the absolute necessity of a holistic, multidisciplinary system. You cannot just sit in a room, practice alternate nostril breathing for an hour, and expect your entire life to magically optimize.
Pranayama is the mechanical pivot point. It is the central engine that creates the vacuum to clear your energetic nadis. But a single engine does not make a functional vehicle.
True wellness requires the integration of multiple systems. You need hatha yoga, the physical postures and movements, to literally twist the flesh, stretch the fascia, and unblock the physical knots in the body so that the breath and energy have a clear physical pathway to travel through.
You need karma yoga to keep you tethered to humanity. Serving others prevents you from falling into the ego trap of spiritual superiority, where you think your 300-count breath hold makes you better than everyone else.
You need bhakti yoga, which is the path of devotion and emotional connection. You need the quiet, passive filtration of general meditation.
And most crucially, you need the humility and rationality to seek modern medical intervention when your biology requires it.
It is so incredibly refreshing to hear a master healer who operates with quantum principles and claims a 90% success rate turnaround and say, "Please use my ancient breathing techniques to vacuum out your 10 million years of evolutionary trauma."
But also, please respect and utilize the pharmaceutical and medical science that doubled the human lifespan.
That synthesis is the ultimate definition of human robustness. It is the harmonious integration of the ancient and the modern, the ethereal energy of the nadis and the cellular biology of the brain, the mystical depths of samadhi, and the practical reality of modern science.
We have covered an immense amount of complex mechanical ground today. Let's trace the arc of this deep dive one final time to solidify the mechanics.
We began by tearing down the modern misconception of pranayama, redefining it strictly as annulum velam, alternate nostril breathing with retention.
We explored the severe, silent physiological dangers of microhypoxia, understanding how improper breath holds can slowly starve brain cells without ever triggering the body's panic alarms.
We looked at the impossibility of ancient texts like Patanjali that demand over 2 hours of daily practice, and we broke down Osman's incredibly pragmatic 21st century adaptation.
We explored the strict 1.4.2 ratio from the Mendram, built on musical beats, and traced the safe progression from a 4-count inhale to the ultimate standard of a 16-count inhale, a 64-count hold, and a 32-count exhale.
We learned the vital lesson of checking our ego and knowing exactly when to stop, just as Osman did when he realized his 300-count hold was masking physical suffocation.
We then mapped the subtle energetic anatomy, the 72,000 nadis, the intertwining color-coded highways of the Ida and Pingala representing our autonomic nervous system, and the ultimate goal of perfectly balancing them to open the central Sushumna column.
We dug deep into the staggering reality that these highways are jammed with 10 million years of evolutionary, genetic, and primitive survival trauma, and we detailed exactly how the physical pressure of pranayama acts as an aggressive internal vacuum to siphon that ancient baggage out of the nervous system.
And finally, we explored the deeply grounded, historically literate reality of Osman himself. A master who achieved samadhi, embraced the friction of a flawed modern life, utilized his corporate wealth for radical karma yoga, and fiercely defends the life-saving grace of modern medical science.
If you want to explore the specific mechanics of these practices further, or if you want to tap into the foundational techniques we've discussed today, Osman offers a completely free 5-minute yoga and meditation program that you can download directly from his website at yogawellness786.com.
And remember, since he's been permanently blind since May 2023, his insights have this incredible unique quality. You can also search for his teachings on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube by looking up the Blind Muslim Yogi.
Right, he shares his knowledge completely free of charge there. And please, echoing Osman's own strict warnings, always consult a licensed medical doctor before you begin manipulating your autonomic nervous system with intense breathwork practices.
It is absolutely vital to respect the intricate, ancient machinery of your own biology.
Which brings us right back to the very first point we discussed. Breathing is the ultimate background noise of human existence. It is the autopilot that we never ever think twice about as we rush through our days.
But after exploring the neurobiology, the ancient physics, and the ancestral depth of this practice, it is entirely impossible to look at a simple breath the same way again.
You realize that with every single inhale, you are actively engaging with a physiological mechanism that is deeply, permanently intertwined with the most brutal ancient history of human survival.
So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
If your breath is truly the physical-mechanical bridge between 10 million years of evolutionary survival memory and your present-day waking consciousness, what might actually change in your life today? What hidden ancient tension might you finally be able to release if you simply stopped what you were doing right now and just paid attention to which nostril is doing the work?